سيداتي سادتي، مباشرة إلى عرض بعنوان المقومات الأساسية لنجاح قطاع سلاسل الإمداد في الثورة الصناعية الرابعة والذكاء الاصطناعي. يقدم هذا العرض الأستاذ فريد أديب قدورة، الرئيس التنفيذي ب 525K في أمريكا، ويعملون من خلال شركاء في المملكة العربية السعودية. الأستاذ فريد لديه خبرة 19 عاما في بناء المشاريع والمنتجات وهيكليات على مستوى عالمي في التركيز على التقنيات الخاصة بالتجارة الإلكترونية وسلاسل الإمداد واللوجستيات، أيضا الأسواق الرقمية. حاصل على الماجستير والبكالوريوس في علم الحاسوب، ويعمل الآن على شهادة الدكتوراه في مجال الهندسة أو في مجال هندسة الإدارة بالولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، ويحمل عدة براءات اختراع أيضا في أمريكا. رحبوا معي بالأستاذ فريد أديب قدورة.
مشكور جدا، الله يعطيك العافية. السلام عليكم، يسعد صباحكم. بالنيابة عن فريق العمل وشركائنا وعملائنا في المملكة، بنتقدم بالشكر من الإخوة المنظمين، بنتقدم أيضا بالشكر من الهيئات العامة والخاصة التي تفضلت وتحدثت قبلنا. So early in the century, it wasn't very clear that anybody will actually ride a car or be on a plane. People were always wondering if the steam engine will actually replace their current mode of transportation. That was to the extent that people believed that 4 horses are better and faster than a 4-horse engine. Fast forward 60 years, there was 50 million users that were using planes. Fast forward about 70 years, there was 50 million users using cars. Fast forward to 2018 and 19, a small video game can have 100 million users in about 15 days. So I was given a really tough topic, not to minimize the difficulty of the other topics on the panel, but to identify what is the 4th revolution and whether actually are we in the 4th revolution? Is this a precursor of the 4th revolution? And what is our role? I'm very mindful of everybody's time. I'm taking 25 minutes of everyone in this room. So I'm hoping by the end that we leave with 3 points. So it's going to take me a little bit of time to get to those 3 points. So bear with me. It is difficult really to understand how expensive it is to fly a drone or to run a store with no people in it. Completely automated from A to Z. You just walk in, scan your barcode, whether you're using your WeChat or using your JD.com or Amazon Go. You just walk in, grab whatever you need, and walk out. We can see the emergence of sensors and advanced technology, not just in e-commerce. We see it in law enforcement. Yesterday, there was talks about FISH and custom clearance and how that transformed a 4-day process into about 45 minutes process. So definitely technology is emerging. However, when you look at those advancements, they're very, very expensive to implement in terms of time and cost. The other question that really forces us to think about the 4th revolution is how much of that is driven by supply chain? The supply chain was the reason why there are drones, or whether it's a customer experience buying from an e-commerce website. I'm hoping that by the end, when we look at the 3 constructs, the 3 essential keys for us to actually participate in this 4th revolution, 4th industrial revolution, is that we come next year, I hope, to present innovation and creativity in the supply chain sector that emerged from the public and the private sector alike. Some people try to define what is a fourth industrial revolution. And again, if you're living it, it's very hard to see the delineation, the separation between the third industrial revolution and the fourth one. The chairman of the World Economic Forum is saying that it's not about just adopting technology. Technology is a catalyst, but if you have systems in your company or your ministry, it doesn't mean that you're actually creating fully automated, compliant with third industrial revolution parameters, that you're done with that phase, now we can go into the fourth one. He even adds, and he says, if your company attempts, there's a good chance that the rate of change will be extremely high. It will be disruptive. You will be uncomfortable. You will try. You will spend money. If you want to be successful, you have to have those attempts done with laser-focused scope, laser-focused milestones for your business, value proposition that is very clean cut, so that you can actually realize that you created some value. We even see more need to describe in some terms what defines the fourth revolution. If you look at food tech and food production, at some point the world was worried that there will not be enough food to feed the population on Earth. Then there was the invention of pesticides, several investments in the agriculture field, and now we have enough food. Now people are worried about the next 50 years. If we end up being 10 billion people living on Earth, do we have enough sustainable food or not? So that was part of some of the concerns that triggered some of these industrial revolutions. In healthcare, people were dying in the tens of millions because of the simple cold or a flu. Those innovations in medicine have triggered different supply chain for those specific industries. And it goes on. So when you look at those specific dates, I actually don't like them. I posted this so that you can see it. Nobody can define when it started, when you realize the value, and when it ended. In fact, many of our companies in this room today haven't fully automated. Maybe you acquired some digital systems, but you haven't fully automated the key workflows to the point where your systems are responsive as you go on with your daily operations. So you can't just take a look at these slides. You'll see things that makes a lot of sense, but ultimately you have to look at your own business to realize where are you on that stack. Well, we're hoping between 3.0 and 4.0, nothing before. In preparation for this presentation, I looked at 11 books. Only one of 11 actually mentions logistics. None of them mentions supply chain. And what's weird is that the head of the World Economic Forum, in his book, defining what the fourth revolution is, he doesn't use the word logistics or supply chain, not even once. So that tells you that supply chain has became a given, became part of the operations, because we're not surfacing up all the innovation to drive those revolutions. Again, one more slide of definitions just so that we understand or speak the same language about this industrial revolution. Just the fact that I have a computer system or I use a cell phone, it doesn't mean that I automated my daily life or my business operations. You could have digitally connected parts of your operations, but if something happens on this side of the business, it doesn't reflect on the other side of the business. And if it does, usually it comes up as an exception workflow. There's a huge discussion about machine learning and artificial intelligence. How much of that is driving the fourth revolution? In most of our companies, we're still at the point of automating. We didn't reach machine learning yet. You could find that in advanced e-commerce platforms. You could find that in very big companies that have spent the last 2 decades trying to understand your patterns. How do you shop? Where do you go to eat? How do you transfer from one point to the other? And ultimately, for somebody to put on a slide somewhere a date for the fourth industrial revolution, you have to actually see the breakout point. You have to see that things from this point are dramatically different than anything else. I'm going to put two flow charts. I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but ultimately we need to understand this. If you have a digital twin, meaning you take every process in your business and you try to make it digital, that's called trying to have a digital twin. That actually, in my opinion, will delay, irrespective of what the writers wrote in their books, will delay your transformation. You don't need to digitize and automate every single process in your workflows. Some of the companies and the people that are sitting here have been in the industry for 4, 5, maybe 6 decades. There's no point of carrying a form or a paper that was used 3 decades and just replicate that into a new system. It's very, very expensive. The biggest concern in adopting artificial intelligence is the accuracy, meaning if you're in manufacturing, you have certain quality controls. You control the quality in your business. You want to achieve a certain defect rate, not higher. Artificial intelligence until now haven't reached that point, which means you don't trust to have a machine decide on your behalf what to do in your business. However, with all the technology that is changing, we expect that the accuracy of the machine making those decisions will be enough to match your current quality controls in your manufacturing and operations. You can anticipate when a delivery will happen. You can predict what will happen next. Those predictive models will take some time until they reach to a point where you're comfortable making that machine decide on your behalf. DHL in 2017 announced that 25% of their pick rate in an e-commerce focused warehouse increased by 25%. This is by using augmented reality. Augmented reality is having some sort of a display with, imagine your phone just being transparent on your car screen or in your transport mode inside the warehouse. The cost of doing augmented reality in a warehouse for e-commerce or other purposes has to be matched with the volumes. None of us will go and spend $10 million or $50 million to establish an augmented reality-based warehouse when I don't have millions of packages leaving that facility every shift, not every day, maybe 3 shifts a day. So big companies are touting that you could use augmented reality, you can do gamification, you can use artificial intelligence to improve your performance or your quality. What I'm arguing is we can achieve that in phases. We don't have to go to the $10 million and $100 million investment up front so that we can achieve those productivity improvements. In fact, yesterday there was a speaker talking about data and analytics. And he had a chart that shows when you get to the petabytes, which is a huge amount of data. And look at when you go look for a restaurant review. If it has more than 1,000 reviews, you can't actually tell if this is a good restaurant or not. It doesn't matter anymore. So finding patterns right now requires that you actually have to trust to some degree the decisions that the machines are doing. The last part about the fourth industrial revolution, before we get into more specifics, is that it's no longer that I'm transporting a package that is only for e-commerce. I'm transporting a package which happens to have a live tissue for an emergency transplant in a hospital, and it has to be delivered under 2 hours. I should have full tracking, full visibility. Now you merge like 3 different industries in supply chain. It's going to become very difficult for the logistics companies that don't transform to be able to fuse, to connect more than one industry in their operations. You can't build a warehouse that is just for refrigerated and another warehouse just for this kind of product and a third one. If you're really going to service the whole industry, you should expect that there's going to be multiple industries converging, coming together, all in one transaction. This is a question that we should think about. Is my business actually fully automated? The premise of the third industrial revolution is that we automated every task that we can automate. We created the digital footprint that mimics, that matches what we actually have done in our business. So if you think that there is core elements of your business that are not yet automated, not necessarily in a system, like I said earlier, a system means you're digital, it doesn't mean you're fully automated. If you take a paper and you key it in a system, it still went digital, but it's not automated. Many people try to study in the universities, especially in management, marketing, and e-commerce, what made Amazon very strong in its core business. Well, they focused on the customer experience. They utilized a really cheap supply chain early on, but for the last 25 years, and I'm ex-Amazon, and my team is constituted of many ex-Amazon engineers in the States and in Jordan, they focus so much that I need the payback period to be in months, not in years. We heard on the panel a request for PIF to invest so that we can have a return on investment that is acceptable, maybe 15 or 20 or 25 years, which makes a lot of sense in infrastructure projects, but not if I'm launching a warehouse or if I'm delivering a package or servicing a hospital. So any innovation and automation that you're doing or about to do, make sure that it's all about your customer experience and it's actually lowering your cost of operation. We did hear from the highnesses that spoke about logistics. We heard some numbers about the size of e-commerce. It's actually growing, it's booming, but it's driving other industries. It's not just e-commerce. We should ask ourselves, if we're servicing food technology, how are we doing that? As supply chain companies, as supply chain executives and operators, how are we doing that? Am I hiring consultants all day long and installing really big, expensive system to understand how can I maintain a record about a batch of dates so that if there's a recall or I need to transport it to another point to actually understand the whole history? We heard about blockchain was mentioned and 3D printing and drones yesterday. How much of that is actually getting into your business in the next 5 or 10 years? So if we were to be ready for different industries that are emerging on our businesses, we actually have to start the investment now in small incremental improvements to automate our business workflows. Several big companies think that if they have agility or scrum masters that they can actually do what startups do. It's very difficult. I was part of big organizations and small organizations all the way through. You could have a very successful team, within your organization that will do miracles for you. You always go to them. You always tell them, hey, I have a big problem, solve it for me. It is important for us, as we heard from everybody that spoke before me, today and yesterday, that the collaboration between smaller companies laser focused on one problem to collaborate with you while you think about all these industries coming to your business. If you try to solve the problem for every one of those industries on your own, I don't have an actual statistic that tells you how many of those companies fail. I can name names for companies that we worked with over years, and eventually they gave up after they spent tens of millions of dollars and said, you know what, just build it for us. I'm talking about nothing specific to KSA. I'm talking about international companies worldwide, met us in different places, in different businesses. So what we're suffering from, or the hurdles we're trying to overcome, or the innovation we're trying to create, is not unique to us. What is unique to us is really what can we accomplish and how fast. The idea that I can spend so much money and somehow magically everything will show up because I have a 3-year plan doesn't actually work. There's a very large tech company that was booming in the last 50 years. And right now, nobody understands what they do, actually. They're just building some hardware, some software, and they demise. If you look at big names that were, at some point, leading companies in the world, they're gone, actually, right now. Think about electronics companies. Think about printing companies. They're gone. And the reason that happens is that they haven't actually looked at their supply chains, their business flow, and how they're going to keep growing this over the next 50 years. They thought that they did, but for example, somebody refused to work on mobile hardware, and behold, Apple is the leader. Many of us, eventually, when you work with somebody with relatively new experience as a business, not as an individual, you'll always say, well, who's your references? How many shipments have you done? How many customers do you have? You have to have some trust. Imagine if this was your own team, you're building from the ground up, teaching them to solve problems, giving them some time to work with you. If you don't help as a leader in a big company, that small startup to succeed, you're killing the ecosystem unintentionally. The market is vast. There is no one company that today can say in any market that I'm 60 or 70% of the ecosystem. Amazon in the US, by the Department of Census Statistics, is between 40 and 45, 46% of e-commerce, which is about 11 or 12% of retail. So every $100, Amazon is only $4 or $5 from every $100 spent in retail. That's why Amazon is building grocery stores other than Whole Foods. So I encourage you really to look at startups, the good ones, quiz them, do your due diligence, but this is the only way for you really to acquire highly specialized, laser-focused talent. All of this has been to emphasize that we can't really wait for somebody to tell us that we're part of the fourth industrial revolution or to tell us that on this date, the revolution started, on this date, there was the breakout. It's all about how we think, how I think. It also means that we have to hire a capable team and understand our core business and be able to work with other companies and in the ecosystem to actually develop my business so that I can grow dramatically. The role of supply chain manager, and there are many in this room, will change dramatically. There isn't one book that I can recommend that will harness all the experiences of the last 20 years so that you can actually be a better supply chain manager. You have to be on the ground. You have to think about how can I innovate on behalf of my customers, and you'll get it. Many of us are doing it. You don't have to have a label on it to know that you're doing it. So this is the last slide. Sorry I took so much of your time, but really I was trying to get only to this point. All this definition and attempt to actually get to an understanding of what the revolution is to get to these points. You have to do things quick. If you can't, work with somebody who can help you. It is possible that could be just another startup down the street. Once you do something, you're successful directly while you're doing it in your company or with others, try to make it better and do that quickly. If you don't collaborate, the amount of knowledge that you have will be limited to your own experiences and your own mistakes. One of the reasons that all of us are in this room is to share experiences, exchange business cards, meet after the meeting, after the conference, and see how we can help each other. So please, just keep this one thing. If there is one thing I want you to leave with is, I don't want us in supply chain to be just consumers of business requirements for emerging and evolving businesses. I hope that the next time we come around, we can actually think about, I managed to automate my business, I moved my business to the next level, I collaborated with others, and here is my innovation. It's very difficult to say, very difficult to do. So unless you commit to it and you're actually willing to put the effort behind it, it will just be talk, and you will never see the results of that. If anybody have any questions or needs those references, just meet me after the session or after the breakout. I really appreciate that everybody gave me some of their time, and I hope that the next time around we meet actually and discuss some of the innovation that everybody did in this room. Thank you very much.